School is resuming in the coming days, and this means your child may likely have a change in the amount of time he or she spends on some sort of computer. We've talked many times about how your child's communication skills are impacted when they do not have enough time in three-dimensional, face-to-face talking with you and family members, friends, and a variety of children or other loved ones. In addition to the intentional need for building good interactive social skills, there is another danger that I have never brought to this podcast before. You may have heard about the dangers of EMF radiation that comes from screens. This is your phones, iPads, computers, the screens. The EMF also comes from Wi-Fi routers, towers, and servers. Today I have a guest with me to talk about how we can protect ourselves and our children from these invisible dangers that are not going away. We all live with this radiation, and it is part of our world now. Join me today in learning how to protect yourself and your kids. Does your child have a speech-language delay and you really want them to talk? Do difficult behaviors derail home life and you know the frustration is a communication struggle? Does your child see a speech therapist and you wonder, what do they do and how can I help? If these or similar questions are in your mind, this podcast is for you. Hello, my name is Dinalynn Rosenbusch. I am a speech-language pathologist that has worked with children from birth to 21 for 3 decades. And in my classrooms, I see you wanting to connect with the heart of your child, but their speech and language skills create a barrier. So if you have a kiddo that has difficult behaviors, needs to expand their language or learn to say speech sounds, and maybe even receives speech therapy, stay tuned, because in this podcast, you will learn how to use your daily life as a tool to communication practice and how to do that practice. You will become confident knowing you are making the difference you want to make. And you will hear success stories of parents who have navigated these struggles already. We'll do this all while focusing on building deep, meaningful connection and confidence in your kiddo. So grab a cup of coffee along with a notebook and pen. It's time to speak in the way your child's brain understands. And that is the language of play. Hello, listeners. Welcome back. I have some exciting news. Thank you to the country of Qatar, because just yesterday, well, yes, I'm recording this just hours before I'm going to put it out this time. So anyway, just yesterday, The Language of Play was the #1 parenting podcast in your country, and it was the #2 podcast for kids and family in your country. So thank you so much, Qatar. It is so much fun to hit #1. And yesterday was the webinar, and it went great. So if you missed it, I'm sorry, but we did record. So email me if you would like the replay. And there was so many wonderful things that people said, so much good feedback, and beautiful, wonderful people had shown up, and that was great. So that is hello@thelanguageofplay.com. If you would like me to send you a recording, that is after I get it cleaned up and edited. Before we begin, I want to thank my sponsor, the Center for Play and Exploration. Getting stuck, fighting burnout, and recovering delight is possible even when you have little ones. The Center for Play and Exploration is an organization that supports adults in restoring some of the childlike wonder you had as a kid. As parents, we get so busy that we could get lost in our to-do list and the other tasks of life while we try to keep up. We lose our spontaneity and joy. But what if you could change how you feel just by changing how you think? This is one way you will benefit from contacting the Center for Play and Exploration. Use the link in the show notes and mention The Language of Play for a 20% discount. In addition, Dave, the founder of the Center for Play and Exploration, is an engaging speaker if you are looking for a speaker for one of your events. Now let's get started with this pre-recorded episode with Sherinata Pollock. Today we have Sherinatta Pollock with us. Her bio says after losing her husband to brain cancer and then surviving a brain tumor herself, Sherinata went on a mission to passionately educate people about the dangers of 5G, wireless technology, and electronic stressors, while providing tips and solutions for using technology safely. And listeners, you know I have talked with you about technology and Wi-Fi and how we want to limit it for our children. And Sherinatta's story is one that has hit me over the years. I met Sherinata a year, 14 months ago, I think, right? And then
Yeah.
we met each other again this past January at Podfest. And we again said, oh, I have to have you on the language of play because what Sherinata teaches is foundational for understanding the health and wellness around this technology. We don't often give credibility to just how dangerous screen time can be from a very physical standpoint. So, not an educational standpoint is what we're talking about today, but we're talking about physically what goes on. So, welcome, Sherinata. I'm so glad to have you here on the Language of Play. It's just a delight to see you again.
And you too. I'm so excited to be here and that we finally made it happen. So,
Yes. We've talked about this for a while, and I am glad you're here. This story of yours, why don't we start there? Because the listeners don't know, other than what I just read, about your story. Can you give us a few excerpts about what happened to you with the brain cancer and why you know it's connected to your internet, to your Wi Fi, to 5G?
perfect. So first of all, mine was benign. Luckily, I had a meningioma type 2, and that type tumor was benign, not cancerous. So, which is really important. My first husband, who passed away from a brain tumor, he had actually cancer, which was a glia, which is the most aggressive brain tumor. He was
Okay.
an electrician. So, and they're surrounded by EMF radiation. And back in the 80s, that's when I found that there was a study that said that because he had passed away very young at 33 years old and leaving me with my 1-year-old son. And that's when I found a study back when I was doing this work. And I fell into all this by chance, which I'll tell you real quickly. And they said that electricians actually have the highest rate of brain cancer for glioblastoma brain tumors, which is the most aggressive of any occupation. And now, which is one of the number one killers of cancer for children, of brain cancers, between 0 and 18 years old. And that
Wow.
was unheard of how many years ago. So when I was not feeling well in my office, fast forward to 20 like 13, 2011, 12, around there actually. And I was getting my own headaches and I started researching, and that's when I found out about that, about EMF radiation and wow, what's going on here. We were only in a 3G world going into 4G back then.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, I was like, I got to do something. And somebody says, you're surrounded by all this radiation in your small little office that I had, which was a different office than I had now. And I didn't realize at that time that I had no idea that I actually had a 1 centimeter tumor that was growing in my brain. And once I had created that new home office that I was working out of, I was so excited because I had all this electronics all around me. But it was in a small little office. They had the Wi-Fi router. I had the 2 monitors. I had the cordless phone, which I thought was a healthier phone. And, the printer and everything, Wi-Fi just bouncing off the walls in this office. And then I'm also sleeping outside of my bedroom, which was the extended office was off my bedroom. How many of us have home offices,
A
right?
lot of us, yeah.
A lot of us do. And we all want great Wi-Fi. So it's either going to be by the TV in the living room or it's going to be by our computers, where we're sleeping. And little did I know that that was actually, it takes about 10 years to form a tumor. And, about just exactly 1 year after I built that home office, 10 years later, 10 to 11 years later, I had a tumor the size of a very large plum that they pulled out of my out of my head. And the thing is that type tumor that I
Wait a second.
had.
You said it was a centimeter, and now you're saying it's a plum. Am I getting
No,
the timeline wrong?
yes, when I was getting my headaches and I wasn't
Ah,
feeling well in my office, that's when that's when it was about when, looking back, when we rolled back the time after we had the biopsy, right? Does that make sense? After we
Oh,
rolled
yeah.
back.
So when you're thinking backwards, it would have been about 1 centimeter at the time of the headaches. And then when you had the surgery, it was about the size of a plum.
Yes, which was just
Okay.
a few years ago. Yes. So yeah, so which was pretty phenomenal. And the reason I say that that type tumor is what caused the electronics caused that type tumor is because the type tumor is usually Black men over 60 get this type tumor.
Mm.
And the second part is that people who are surrounded by a lot of radiation get this type tumor. And well, I know I'm not a Black man over 60. That's one
Hmm.
thing for sure.
We
And
can be
I
sure
can
of that.
guarantee, yeah, I can guarantee that. And and the part is that yeah, I like there was no other reason for that tumor to start growing at that time. It was specifically what like just about 1 year after I was there. And it takes about, that's what they say, it takes about 10 years to grow a tumor in your head, in your body, in certain areas. And especially like the statistic says that if you're on a cell phone for 20 minutes a day over a 10-year period, you have a chance, a 40 to 50% chance of getting a brain tumor.
Wow, those are really, really scary stats. And I don't want this podcast to be a place of fear. So
Nope.
let's jump from those stats into empowerment. What can we do to protect ourselves? Because we
Thanks.
know computers are not going away.
Nope. Thanks, Dinalynn, for saying that. And that's my whole thing is, you know what? We have to stay living healthy in a digital age. I always say that, and
Exactly.
I'm pretty positive, and to start being smarter than our smart electronics. You know, they haven't actually done any physical studies, any true, really big studies since I think it was like the early 1990s. And well, we know our cell phone, and that was on a large man that was like 200, a large dummy of a man that was 220 pounds. That wasn't on children. It wasn't on, women who are usually around what 150 to 60 pounds or even less. So, when you think about it, it's like, we need to be smarter than our smart electronics. We need to know that just because they're selling it doesn't mean that it's healthy. And I want you to really, when you get a chance, if anybody buys a new phone, I want you to actually look at and I just want people to be aware because I really do want to jump into all the positive things, but I
Yeah.
want people to understand that this isn't hearsay. This isn't fake news. This is the real
Yeah.
deal. This
Yeah.
is really happening. And there are real websites that show this information. And you can always reach out to me at any time to look for those.
I can
Uh,
validate that too with my story because
yeah,
you
so
know
go
my
ahead.
story of getting Lyme disease, and I was diagnosed when I was already in the late stage of Lyme disease. And immediately, of course, I had Western medicine and I was getting sicker and sicker. And then I went to Eastern medicine, and the very first thing that they said, they touched me and pulled their hands right off. And he said, "You need to neutralize your radiation." I didn't know what he was talking about. And he explained to me that it was my computers, my phones, and he had ways to have it was a memin that he gave me that would neutralize that wave. And I know you use a stone, a shungite stone. And so there are things in the environment, things in our world that will neutralize the radiation and the impact on your body. But that was the first thing he said before he could even treat me. He said, "We have to put this against your body. We have to lessen the impact of the radiation on your body."
And that gives me goosebumps because people don't really, 'cause you know what? Depending on our health, which we don't know, and just like children, they are so sensitive. Their
Mhm.
bodies are so fragile. They have very thin skulls. Their skulls have not grown and have thickened. So ours, so they absorb up to 10 times as much as
Mhm.
we do as an adult. That's very, very important.
That's what
And
I heard too, kids and pets.
oh, and definitely pets. And how many people have kitty cats and dogs that are laying all around on top of their laptops on the desk? They'll just jump up on there, or they're on their, they're laying on their bellies on on their legs, and in the chairs with them, or even down on the floor. And it's like we
Mhm.
really need to think about what we have to do, and that's why I created the ebook that I'm going to give away for free anyway for anybody to download because I want people
Yay! So we have a
Yay.
free gift, listeners, from Sherinata. It is a free ebook, and I'll have the link in the show notes. Thank you for that, Sherinata. That's lovely. I'm looking forward to reading it myself.
Yes, definitely. So, and for children, it's really important to know that like brain development, sleep disruption, and there's lots of ways, learning challenges, even verbal as well,
Mhm.
is affected. They are greatly affected. So, so the great things, there's so many things that we can do. And I love that you have like your podcast is called The Language of Play, because I'm all about being playful and fun, and I think that, just being in joy is, so important for us. And going outside and playing is one of the greatest things that you can do for
Mhm.
a child, is get them outside off of the electronics and get them to go outside and play again. Get them outside with their bare feet grounded into the earth.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yes.
Because one of the things that I learned from you, and then I think I learned it from some other sources too, because obviously I needed to learn about this when I found out for my own health. So when we actually get outside and we ground, we stand on the ground. Barefoot, of course, is better, but if however you get on the ground, you
No, you can't say however,
okay, tell me
because
that.
I want to correct you on that. Is because when we are wearing rubber shoes, once rubber shoes really came into existence, which was, I think, I'm not sure, I want to say 50s, 60s, the rubber shoes completely cut us off to the earth.
So is the rubber shoe any tennis shoe, or is it just like rubber boots?
Rubber tennis shoes, the thicker the shoe, the worse it is. So if you have a very thin shoe, I think it's possible for you to still have to receive the electrical currents from the earth. However, like the barefoot shoes that they sell, which I
Mhm.
love, but for the most part, be barefoot on the grass, be barefoot on the sand. And they also say that if you are in cement, believe it or not, it can still receive the electrical currency of the earth through concrete, but not through rubber shoes.
I totally believe that because I know that, like, I live in Minnesota. We are not going to go barefoot all the time. There is a good 6 months of the year we are not barefoot. But what I do is I sometimes when I just feel that tension, that EMF tension that I have become familiar with, I will put on my coat and go outside and I lay in the snow or lay on the ground in my snow clothes and I can feel my body relax against the earth. And I know that the grounding is happening that way through my clothes.
It is. And the sun and just being
Mm.
outside. And because remember, it's all in synergy together. You're getting fresh air, the
Yeah.
oxygen, the trees. I mean, you're connecting to all things. The sun, we're connected to the earth, right? The sun
Mhm.
rises, the moon rises, we're all in synchronicity. When one's rising, the other one's going down, and in
Mhm.
the ebb and flow of the tides. And that's who we are. As we breathe, we sound like the ocean. So we need to come back to our natural resource of who it is that we are in this world.
That is a beautiful way to say it. I have never heard it described like that.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's really important because, I always say, like, when we, I guess because, I come from as a healer, energy healer, is what I love to do. And I think
Yeah.
it's so important for us to realize that. I want you to think about, like, when you're living chaotically and you're in overwhelm, right? And our heads are in overwhelm, our children are in overwhelm, and they're just spinning, spinning, spinning. We have all been there. We've all done
Mhm.
that, correct?
Yeah.
Now, when you go outside, what happens? You feel better.
Yeah.
You feel
It's
better.
it's like the energy gets discharged.
Yeah. Like all of a
Mhm.
sudden you're like, walk outside, you're like, oh my gosh, thank goodness for outside,
Mhm.
wide open spaces. And I want you to think the same thing is happening with our cells, because it's free radicals that are entering into our body from the EMF radiation, from the even the blue light, because remember, that's when the blue light's on at nighttime, it's creating a daytime feeling for our circadian rhythm, right?
Mhm.
And children are greatly affected by that. So it's like, yeah, less screen time way before they go to sleep, way before they go to sleep. And, getting the Wi-Fi routers out of their, if there's Wi-Fi routers anywhere near their bedroom, you need to move that, or move their bedroom, put somebody somewhere else. The Wi-Fi router should not be within 10 feet of your body.
A router should not be within 10 feet of your body.
I would say no. I would say 8 to 10 feet is the that no less than that. So like when you're sitting in the living room, make sure the Wi-Fi router is far from you.
Well,
Like,
that's not the case in my house. I don't have that big of a house, and the living room is a central room, and so it's on top of a shelf in the center room of the house. So if
yeah.
you're in the living room in my house, you're within 10 feet.
So you want to make sure you have some EMF
Yeah.
radiation products in your
Protection.
door.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's move to that idea because, again, I don't want this podcast to be a place of fear because we really do want to empower people to realize that, yes, in this digital age, we have our computers. They're not going away. We will continue to be exposed. But just like the rain falling outside, you can go out in the rain and stay dry if you have the right gear. So let's talk about some of the things that we can do with the products you have, but also the natural things to do. So you mentioned us getting away from it, which is getting outside, having distance between it. I know one of the things we've talked about too is that phones should be turned off and out of the bedroom when you sleep. Um, and for me personally, I shut down all of my internet. I shut off the router. I have a toggle switch that I put onto the power supply. So I slide it to off at night and I slide it to on when I'm ready to use the
I
computers in
love
the
that.
morning. But at the same time, when I open my computer, I can see the neighborhood and how many different people have routers. And so I know that some of it's still coming to me because my computer can read that it's there. So
Exactly.
tell us what is going to help us be safe from a physical practical standpoint if we don't have any of these stones or whatever. And then tell us what shungite is and why it works also.
Okay, so I would say starting with things that we can do to be safe. So I would say, especially if you're with children, is try to create a device-free zone. Keep your phones and your tablets, especially if it's the bedroom and the Wi-Fi routers out of the bed, and let them know that, you know, they like maybe if there's a play area, it could be in a play area, but you want it to be like you want to have sanctioned areas. No cell phone zone areas or where you know that you're going to be safe. So create device free zones. Very, very important. And let children get used to that because we want to create smart habits. That's the most important thing.
Mhm.
Is we want to raise our kids to be smarter than our smart electronics. So that way they are cognizant of knowing all these things as they grow up, just like wearing a helmet if you're going to play football, right? Putting on your
Mhm.
seatbelt when you're going into the car. So that's and the parent, they're going to learn from parents. They're going to learn from them, right? Because the
Right.
pros are sponges.
What we do.
So, mhm. um, as often as you can, and I agree with you, it's like, especially with kids, my kids didn't really, my more like, they're a little bit older. We had Wi-Fi later on. And so growing up, I probably would have shut it off more often
Mhm.
when they were younger. I know I would have if I had known,
Right.
and I did not know. So I ended up finding other tools that and that's why I have what I have. So I think that definitely, if you're able to shut off this Wi-Fi, because that's the only time I use a grounding mat actually when I'm sleeping, or grounding sheets.
I've heard
And
of those. I haven't seen those yet.
I love one. I have a favorite one that I use. I can send you the link as well. And
Okay. I'll put that in. I didn't expect any of these freebie and links. So this is great. Grounding mat.
yes, I have noticed such a difference with when I'm using it because, at nighttime for yourself, for your pets, for your children, for everybody, it's like that is our time to regenerate ourselves. That's our time to heal our body. And we cannot do that if you're sleeping with a cell phone. I cannot believe the amount of people that I have spoken to because I've been in this business for over just about 10 years now, as a professional in this business.
Hmm.
And the amount of people that I know now that sleep with their cell phones, it's like almost, I couldn't even believe it. So if you
Hmm.
are somebody that sleeps with your cell phone, I highly advise you, do not do that. Sleep with somebody you love, sleep with a person, sleep with a pet. Don't sleep with your cell phone.
But what if people use it as an alarm? What do you recommend that they
You can
do
use
if
it
their
as an
cell phone
alarm.
is their alarm?
Yeah, you can use it. You can, but you don't need, you can still keep it on airplane mode and use an alarm.
There you go. You put on airplane mode, and how far should it be from your head or from your body?
Well, I personally don't keep mine in my bedroom. So, but some people say, well, what if my son calls or my daughter calls or somebody calls me, my loved one calls me. So the further away from you, the better. That's all I have to say. The further away from you, the better,
Yeah.
and
And in as much as I believe this and I know this, at the time of this recording, my daughter is due to have a baby within days. And so my phone is on and it's in my bedroom at night. I just have it farther away from me, but I normally don't. My family all knows I turn it off at night. But right now, I want to be available in case the baby comes, like by the time this airs, the baby will be older, but but like this is a reality that sometimes we go in and out of these circumstances. But I think if we can get into a habit where what I'm saying right now is the break of habit, not the norm.
correct. And what I do is I keep my volume on high and I keep it out in the kitchen.
Ah,
So
sure.
Mhm. So I'm like, I'm going to hear it. And if it's somebody that's really important, I will hear it,
Mhm.
because I have it set where, it's nighttime mode and only important phone calls come through.
Sure.
So that's what I do. So there are creative ways of working with your electronics. And I think that's the most important. You have to do, it's not a one, I always tell people, this is not a one size fits all situation. You have
Jackpot.
people who live in the suburbs, you have people who live in the city, in the high rises, where there's 5G towers everywhere. You have people who live, in the country. And now, I mean, we're supposed to be putting apparently, even in the national parks, with whatever's gonna be left in the national parks, but let's national parks, Wi-Fi in the national parks. And it's just like, so we're not going to be able to get away from it. And I think it's very important to always be wearing. And I think that children and adults, even pets, we even sell pets, something for the pets, should always be wearing something that is protective on their bodies to neutralize the radiation that's coming from the electronics when they're out in Wi-Fi or wherever you
Mm.
are, if they're in school, if you're homeschooled, if you're going to restaurants, wherever you are, because we can't get
Mhm.
away from it anymore.
Right.
That's really, really important. That's why it's, to do the research. Sure, you can get something from me. I have, reasonably priced, lots of different types of things for all ages, tools for our body, jewelry and
Mhm.
accessories. But,
So
you have,
let's talk about that. We know that there's multiple products,
mm-hmm,
and some of them are fabulous, and some of them we don't know. At least I don't know. But
mm-hmm,
I do know that what you've got is shungite stone.
mm-hmm.
Can you explain what shungite is and why that works, or tell us something about it?
Sure. So, what's really, really special about this stone, which is unlike any other stone on the face of the planet, pretty much, is that it holds the carbon 60 molecule, which is very special. And there's a lot of research. You can pull it up online. And for me to go down the science of that is a lot right
I
now.
kind of
But it's a
nerd on that.
hollowed out stone, C60, carbon 60. So you can think of it anywhere between coal and a diamond. The shungite sits right in the middle. Okay.
Okay.
And it's a hollowed out, the molecule is hollowed out in the middle. So it looks like a soccer ball. Okay. And literally it's a carrier. And so they actually create this molecule. It's called the molecule of the 21st century. There's been Nobel prizes on this from scientists who have actually created it and they founded it and they understood it and why it works and how it works. So it is used everywhere. The most important thing in our bodies, in like in so many different types of science,
Mhm.
to regenerate. Now, what's really cool is that this is found only in shungite, this molecule. And
Interesting.
and the higher, so I actually have a pure piece of shungite. See how pretty and shiny it is? This is called the elite right here. And this is like 90 to 98% elite shungite, which means it has a very like 98% carbon C60 molecule. It's very soft. You can wear it. We make it into jewelry, but you can only make it into a rock that's hanging. Very little bit of it can ever be formed because it will, even if you're trying to carve it out, it's going to fall apart. So when they create jewelry, accessories and jewelry and beads, they use what's called like a type 3. It's not as shiny. This is polished still, and this has other types of minerals in it like pyrite and different things like that. And you can see it, the veins going through here, but a little bit of carbon 60 goes a very long way. So you don't need a lot of it. And so it's really a preference. But I got to say this, there are people out there, it's very important to buy from a reputable source when it comes to shungite. If you don't know the source, don't buy, because there is a lot of fake shungite out there and people will sell it. Like, yes, people lie about it. So it's very
Sure.
important to know what you're buying. And because it's because it looks like it's a black rock, and
Yeah.
a lot of, and what's really cool is that if you actually put it up to a flashlight, certain types of flashlights, and you do a flashlight test, which I do have on my Instagram page and I have on my website, and you can see how the flashlight test works. And you can see that it actually it carries its own electrical field, which is why it creates harmony in our body, a harmony where there's disharmony in our body. Okay,
Yes.
and it will light up a flashlight. So, which nothing else does that either. And so shungite is a very, very special, rock that, is works on our bodies and for it to bring our electrical bodies back to source again. And it actually, if you have pain in your body and you take it, you can take a piece of shungite or the pyramid and put it where you have pain, and it actually will alleviate the pain, just by not even touching your skin. It's pretty incredible that way. You have a
That is. I've
headache.
never heard that or tried that. Maybe I need
Mhm.
to.
Yes. So a lot of times when people wear the pieces, they feel very peaceful wearing them, or they'll say, wow, when I'm putting on the bracelets or, different parts on the body, like, oh my God, my wrist doesn't hurt anymore. My fingers don't hurt anymore, things like that. So it's pretty cool.
So I know that this is real stuff because I experienced it in my life. I also know that when I first heard about it, I thought, oh, that's a bunch of baloney. People are just marketing and making money off of stuff that is a scare tactic. And how do people actually know which places are real? I know you're real because you and I have talked. I've met you. I've got some of your products. Here, I'll even show. You have shungite that you put between two layers of a sticker so that we can put it right onto our phones. And so
Mhm.
I've got it on the back of my phone. I know how you do your product, and I know how Memon did their product because that was the product that I had had prior to meeting you. I guess my question is, how does somebody know who is a reputable source? Because you're saying know your source. But for me, it was like I had never heard of it. I went with
Mhm.
what the practitioner was telling me because he seemed to know. And indeed,
Yeah.
it made a huge difference.
And that's what you do is you have to, do your due diligence. When you go to look for something, you look for the reviews, you look for what feels right. If you don't trust it when you get it, or you're not sure if it doesn't light up the flashlight the way it's supposed to, you return it. But I would definitely get into some groups or talk to people, reach out to, us to reach out to me. It's fine. And that's the only way you're going to know. I mean, there's some very, very expensive products to very inexpensive
Mhm.
products. We know this, right? You see,
Right.
yes. I think that what we want to do is find what you're comfortable with. And I am very comfortable with shungite. I know it works. We sell the rocks, we sell the powder, we sell everything. And the most important thing, people get very overwhelmed. They're like, where do I begin? Where do I start? I say the most important thing is you have to start with your heart. What is it that, first of all, everybody needs a sticker. Everybody in the world needs to neutralize the radiation that's coming off that cell phone, because as you're wearing it on your body, you're giving it to your kids, and it's everywhere. It's with you 24/7, just like your body parts. It's your arm, it's your leg. You're like, if you
Yeah.
leave home without it, you're going to freak out. And sometimes you leave your kids home before you leave out your cell phone home.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And with children, there's so many things. So that's why I always tell people, I said, just start, get it, get the variety pack, get a starter pack. We have great deals. We're all 25% off always on the website when you buy a bundle pack, and for the families. And then, and get something that you can wear.
Yeah.
And if it's a necklace that you wear all the time, great. We have it for children too. So if you have something for children that you want, great. If they're going to wear a bracelet, you just, wear
Something.
something. just wear something, and if you're wearing AirPods, I don't believe in AirPods whatsoever. Get those out of your brains. Get them out of your kids' brains.
I've heard that from every practitioner that I know that knows something about EMF. They say, do not wear the wireless earbuds in your ears because you're taking the Wi-Fi and putting it right next to your brain. Wow. Every single person that I've talked to has said that. And because of my journey, I've talked to a lot of different people in different ways about this, but not on my podcast until you. So yay. I'm so glad that you're here to tell the families how important this is and how they can protect not just their children, but protect themselves. And it's about developing habits that will be protective habits and allow us to be able to use our devices to be present in the Wi-Fi because it's here, but also be protected from it and let our bodies recover during sleep. Thank you for your very grounded advice.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And there's a few other links I would love to just share real quick, one is called the Baby Safe Project.
Okay. Whatever links you tell, I'll put them in the chat. So go ahead and just list them.
So that is one of them, Baby Safe Project, and that's great, even especially for your daughter. And that's backed by scientists and doctors from all around the country and Canada. They have all signed it, and there's things that you can download for free. Of course, we have our free ebook. I highly encourage you to get it, and I know I've also given you a discount coupon.
Yay!
So to purchase from our website, of course. And then there's also something called Environmental Health Trust, which is, I think, ehtrust.org. Devora Davis in there. She is phenomenal, and she is I forget which type of doctor, a pediatrician, anyway. So, but either way, she has created a massive movement. So I would, go there as well if you really want to find where the doctors and scientists are hanging out with their studies, the true studies. Because it's, because there's a lot of things that have been changing around on the internet as of recently.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here on the Language of Play, Sherinata. It is always a delight every time I get to see you.
It is too. I know, and for you too, for sure. I can't wait to see you again in person.
Thank you. Thank you again to our sponsor, the Center for Play and Exploration. Hey parents, I hope you found this episode helpful. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who also lives or works with children? I would really appreciate it if you would leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I read every review, and it lights me up to know that this show is making a difference. Then come join my Facebook community, where you'll meet other parents who are dedicated to helping their children grow too. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for joining me. Now it's time to go. Let's pop our kiddos in the strollers and go look around outdoors and see what we have to talk about.